Are you ready to discover how to shift the school? Make leaders making it happen. Hi, I'm your host, Tony Kimball, the host of Transforming Lives podcast, and we are looking at 50 educators from 50 states. My next guest is definitely no stranger to success, no stranger to the leadership position. My next guest is Miss Ashley Moore, an award-winning educator, nationally certified principal mentor, over 15 years of experience transforming education through innovation. Now, most recently, she was recognized as the 2024 Connected School Leader Award. She's leading the charge. Look, we're going to get into a conversation. I think everybody's here to hear her, but then also there's a part that I'm eager to hear about because this platform called Threads, she is making it happen. I looked at a couple of posts on the 15th. It's like thousands of people are engaging with the post. So she's going to have to tell me that a little later, how she makes that happen. But how to take this idea of AI, not Allen Iverson, but how do you take it and use it in your schools? I'm excited about what's going to happen through our conversation. Now, Principal Mo, as she sometimes is called, has already guided countless educators, school leaders to embrace cutting-edge technology to achieve transformation in their schools. She track record speaks for itself. Now, in this conversation, you'll get just practical strategies, practical ways that you can have an impact in your school. And I am excited about it. I hope you are too. Let's go.
Transforming lives. Inspiring stories from educators worldwide. Impact happening worldwide. Your transformation starts here.
All right, my next guest, I'm bringing on to the stage. My next guest, Miss Ashley Moore, better known as Principal Mo. Welcome. How are you?
Hi, Tony. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have you on, and and I was trying to go through my mind and figure out, how did we connect? Maybe you can help me out with that. I'm trying to think, how did we connect? What was the connection?
I think it was somewhere between Instagram and Threads. I feel like it's definitely social media for sure.
Right, social media. Yeah,
Definitely for sure.
Yeah, and that's kind of how it happens when we think about connections, how it happens. Just, you can be on these social media platforms and then you just see maybe a post or something and you just, make the connection. So usually I ask everybody this question: how is the weather where you are?
It's cold. It's very cold. It's currently in the teens right now. It's supposed to feel below zero, like in the morning. We actually have a delay tomorrow because it's so cold outside, and it snowed yesterday, and so the snow started melting. So snow melting plus that cold equals ice. So we'll see what tomorrow brings. But we're getting a real winter for the first time in a long time here in Maryland.
Ooh, okay. That's interesting because the threat of ice tomorrow has shut down the local schools in my area. It's the threat. I don't know what's happening right now, but I think there's supposed to be either ice or snow or something supposed to happen on tomorrow, and they've shut down school. I think they shut down school for the next 2 days or something. So in Mississippi, you can't use that language. So in Maryland, in Baltimore, did I say that right? Correct me. Baltimore?
Baltimore. Well, I'm actually not from Baltimore, like some people say. So I say Baltimore. I pronounce it properly.
Okay. All right. I try to fill it out.
Huxtable. Baltimore.
I try to fill it out. Got you. Well, good deal. So I want to jump right in when we think about, this whole idea of 50 educators from 50 states. I am getting in contact with just dynamic leaders, and just my interaction with you on social media and what you're posting and questions and statements and your hot take of things. is our driving discussion. So I want to start out with this first question right here. What advice would you give a leader about driving transformation in education? It's a two-part, and inspiring positive change in their schools. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, sure. What I've learned throughout the years, if I could just sum it up into a few words, I would say first, you need to have vision. You need to
Mhm.
have clarity about that vision and be able to communicate that vision. Be consistent in your actions about your vision, and then be willing to collaborate about what that vision looks like, and to bring people along the way in that process, and for them to have their own role in the vision. So making sure that the vision is exciting, that it's
Mhm.
inspiring,
Yeah.
that it is something that people want to achieve and they want to attain for either themselves, for their students, for stakeholders, but
Right.
then also being clear. I feel like sometimes in just learning about vision,
Mhm.
that sometimes we say, we want all schools to be to produce lifelong learners and for the 21st century. But what does that actually really mean? What does that look like?
Right.
How are we going to take the students to get there? And how are we going to work together as stakeholders to get there? So just being very clear about what that vision looks like so that people
Mhm.
can actually see it with you, and being
Right.
able to communicate what that vision looks like, therefore providing that clarity and steps on how to move forward. So then you don't have a lot of pushback in terms of, whoa, I don't understand what this is,
Yeah.
because usually that's why you get that pushback when you have your vision and
Yeah.
then you're saying, all right, everybody, let's go. And they're like, wait a minute, but I don't understand.
Yeah.
I don't understand this. What's in it for me? Like there
Right.
are certain
Yep.
things that they may not get. And then just being consistent and making sure that everything is about that vision, and it's student centered. And then also being willing to collaborate. Um,
Mhm.
Robin Jackson says, be be flexible on the details, but very strict on the vision.
Mm.
So sometimes it's not always about the process and the how. It's more
Yeah.
so the end goal in getting there.
Yeah.
So that's it. Vision, clarity, consistency, and collaboration.
Absolutely. I love that. That was the word as you were talking, clarity. And when you're trying to put lead a group, not push, but lead a group of people to a certain place, you got to get buy-in. They got to find out
Absolutely.
what
They
it
have
what
to understand what's going on.
right? And what's in it for me. And it
Right.
seems as though that's selfish on their part, but that's their investment, right? Nobody invests in something that they, number one, don't have clarity about, nor do they see the value in it as well. So yeah, that's good. That's good. Absolutely. So, you know, still on the lines of leadership, because you know, think about John Maxwell. He's my guy. All right.
Yes.
Leadership is influence, no more, no less. That's what leadership at. That's the thing that's kind of in my head. So on those lines, like what's one thing about educational leadership that's often misunderstood or overlooked? And can we talk about how leaders can address it effectively?
I think I can't just say one thing because there's a lot of things that people really don't understand.
Okay.
But one thing that I can say that you probably don't hear very often is the humanity of being a leader.
Ooh, yeah.
And I think that we as leaders, we have this idea that we always have to be, the superhero, the person that's strong for everyone. And as a result, we sometimes neglect ourselves and we neglect our feelings.
Hmm.
And what often tends to happen is if we continue to position ourselves and put ourselves in this place in people's minds where I'm the strong one, I'm here for you, then
Mm,
sometimes you strip away your humanity
right.
in other people's eyes. And so then what also often happens is that people forget that you're human.
Yeah.
And so that comes up in a lot of ways. People come and in the principal's office. Some people are, oh, you're just a principal. No, I'm the therapist. I'm the problem solver. I'm the people come and they dump and they dump. You got a minute. You got a minute. You hear that 30,000 times a day, and you don't want to say no, you don't want to turn people away, but sometimes you need a moment to yourself, or
Right.
sometimes you need to be able to just gather yourself in order to be the best leader that you can be. And I think that that lack of people understanding the humanity in you as a building leader is what is often overlooked, and it's not intentional.
Right.
It's not, there's no harm or foul in it. It's just this kind of what happens.
Hmm.
And that's how I always led. I always led, this people don't see my emotions. They
Yeah.
don't see any, a straight face.
Hmm.
And so during the pandemic, I learned that being vulnerable in leadership, I actually posted about this, I think, on LinkedIn, but being vulnerable in leadership is a strength. And
Yeah.
I think that's how leaders can address it effectively. No, you don't have to rant. No, you don't have to complain. But there are times when you do have to be vulnerable about who you are and what you do and what you're all about. And how you think and how you feel. You have that right in that place in the world to be that way. And the schoolhouse shouldn't make it any different. So I know sometimes people think that, if people see you being vulnerable, they may think the leader thinks that, oh, I'm being seen as weak.
Right. Yep. Hmm. Yep.
And and you're always on the defense. You're like, well, they could use this against me or whatever the case may
Yeah.
be. But in reality, people appreciate that.
Yeah.
People appreciate that and people value that. And then it helps them see that humanity in you as a leader. And at the end of the day, everybody understands we're all humans working together to help other little humans be great humans too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it becomes less of a power struggle, it becomes less of um it just becomes less of a power struggle and a us versus them or me versus you mentality, and it's we, us, and our working together,
Yeah.
towards this common vision, this common goal.
Right. I agree. So you touched them. Ooh, you touched on a lot of stuff there. That I mean, even from the standpoint, I like how you pinpointed the term superhero because
Hmm.
there's a false sense of this character trait that people think leaders have. Like you're
Yes.
human. I got up this morning. I drank some water like you. But it's like the
Hmm.
position kind of or the perception removes the individual from that. It just removes them from it. Like you don't have that's I was going to say sympathy, but you don't get it as a
Hmm.
leader. You're supposed to be strong, but there's a part of empathy that should be in there as well. That
Right.
you show them, okay, today I'm not having a good day. I'm going to show you glimpses of it. I'm going to keep pushing through so that when it's, when they're dealing with it or if they experience it, you can kind of, they can see the human side of you. Because sometimes we're strong, but we're looking for another strong buddy to help us through as well. So, yeah. Ooh, I love that. That's powerful. So we've kind of looked at kind of this leadership part of just kind of straightforward, what is leader? What does that look like? What mistakes make what does that part look like? I want to get into this
Hmm.
next one is let's talk about operations because operations, I'll be honest, have humbled me because
Mm.
you can look at somebody else do it and they could have all their ducks in a row, but then once you sit in that seat, you kind of apologize in your head and say, well, behind this hood is not the same thing as I thought it was. So my question is, how have you streamlined operations in your school and allowed the administration, the teacher to focus on what really matters? I think they love that part. Student success. What have you done to make that happen?
So, as young people will say, operations is my bag. It's what I
Hold
it's
up, hold up, hold
it's
up.
what I do.
Hold up. There we go.
So, streamlining operations, I'm always trying to look for ways because we want to optimize time, right? We want to optimize time because the more time that we have, the more we can focus on students and student success.
Mhm.
So one of the things is just always being planned to prepare, but also foreseeing challenges and digging those wells so you're not thirsty when you need to drink.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, so you really have to foresee those challenges and think beyond. Okay, you always want to think things are going to go the way that you plan them to, but a lot of times they don't.
Yeah.
So and these are things that I've learned along the way, but just having standard operating procedures, I don't think people really talk about that in the education world too much, but like standard operating procedures, like this is how everybody takes attendance. This is how everybody, does this and that, and different things in the building. At this point, I don't have to be in my building for it to run. It can run from the beginning to the end of the day, and everybody knows what needs to happen and when it
Mhm.
needs to happen and what needs to be done. And so that's how you want it to be. You don't want to be the bottleneck, because that's what happens with operations.
Right.
Honestly, leaders are the reason why operations fail, because they're the bottleneck. They're the reason why something can't move on to the next part of the operation, because they've
Mhm.
put themselves in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And so once I realized that, I started taking myself out of different processes, because I realized I was in too much.
Mm.
And and if I wasn't involved, then it didn't happen the way it needed to, because I'd be out of the building at a meeting, or I'm sick, and things are
Mhm.
not running the way they're supposed to. And I learned that biggest lesson during COVID. I ended up getting COVID in the middle of October, so things are still fresh and new for people. And
Yeah.
so I realized when I came back and I sat with my team, that I was a huge bottleneck. So that was one thing that I started working on, with just like, standard operating procedures, and also taking things from different leaders that I've learned along the way. For example, we have a daily board. It goes out every morning. I actually set my email to send it out at 7 o'clock
Mhm.
every morning. And then what I do is it's a Google slide, and every day we update the Google slide, and it's just the coverage, the schedule for the day, who's going to be visiting,
Yeah.
what are there any schedule changes? Here's links to the schedule. Here's links to this, and that. And so people get that every morning, and it's a piece of communication that's expected. And if it's not out by a certain time, they're in my office. Not going to, where's the board? We need to know what's going on for
Right.
today. Where's the board?
Yeah.
And so um and so that's one thing. Another thing that I've done, which has been a little bit of a game changer for me. And I actually got the daily board from a friend on TikTok. She's Principal Mommy, but her name
Yeah.
is Amber Shields.
Yeah.
And she shared that with me. And then I got this from a colleague, a week at a glance. So
Mhm.
basically, it's my week where I send it out, but I also send the list of priorities that I have for that week. And then I also have, like, a list of people that I'm observing informally that week.
Yes.
And then there's another tab where it's my distributive leadership. So all of my leaders in my building, if there are tasks that they have to complete that are aligned with my weekly tasks, they know what tasks that they need to complete for that week. And then it's like a little dashboard where they can update their progress on it, and then they can like write me notes and find out exactly what needs to be done, or if they've run into a roadblock, they contact me about it. But my leadership team has really appreciated it, said, because they said that clarity. They're like, okay, I know what I need to do. In addition to my regular tasks, like I know what needs to be done this week, and
Right.
I know what you're working on. So then I know if I keep going to your office and saying, "Oh, do you got a minute?" I know you don't have a minute.
Yeah.
I could see your entire schedule and what it is that you're working on. And then also and this is one of the things about collaboration. One of my teachers, she said, we need a master calendar. Like, she's like,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
know you have one, but she was like, it
Right.
needs to be one for the whole building.
Right. Yes.
And I said, okay, we can make it. So now we have a master calendar where it's not just, okay, this is what's happening on this date. Because at one point we were just using Outlook, but
Yeah.
now I'm the
Yeah.
queen of spreadsheets. So it's a spreadsheet. And with the master calendar, it's like, student achievement activities, alignment for family community engagement,
Yeah.
IEP meetings, due
Yeah.
dates. So there's different columns for different things. And it's also really helpful to see, well, how do we engage families this month? Do we need to add additional engagement activities for them?
Mhm.
Or, student celebrations, how often do we celebrate kids? And
Yeah.
so it really helps us kind of as a reflection tool, looking back at
Right.
like at a month, what we did that month, and then how we need to plan for the next month or upcoming months. Or we look at the whole year and look at, okay, we had a lot of family engagement, we
Yeah.
had this, we had that, triangulate that with some survey data, and look at how we can continue to make the year better. And also not to overload. For example, what having that master calendar, it helped me visually to see that
Mhm.
we were overloading on the evening events, not
Yeah.
for the families, but for me, because I had to be at all of them.
Right. Right.
So, the standard rule is that we try not to have no more than two a month. So that way the staff can attend, I can attend, and we're not overloaded or overburdened with a bunch of evening events, throughout the month. So those are just some of the ways that we just streamline the operations. In my leadership team, they're able to edit all of these things. Like I
Mhm.
said, I'm not the only person. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like the one of the biggest things with um, s- streamlining your operations is that a lot of times the leader is the problem, and sometimes you have to delegate and let it go, or collaborate and make it so that other people can contribute where you're not in a way.
So let's see how I'm going to approach this right here. Because I'm going through my mind because I'm gonna cut up that whole segment we just had right here. That was a PD for administrators because what you've done is, and the whole thing about innovation is how do we take something that has been going on for years or even for
Mhm,
centuries or for decades? How do we take that and make it into I say move it into technology, make it
mhm,
innovative. Of even how we've talked about vision, right? You can talk about vision, it's on the board, you come in, see the vision, but you've set up systems so that now people can run with the vision. That's one thing to see the vision, but it's another thing to actually run with it and get others to run with it. And hearing that how you've implemented the slides, the Excel or Google Sheets, whichever one,
mhm.
so that people can pick it up and run with it. It's one thing to hear it, but it's another thing to run with a vision. So yeah, whenever you're gonna do this, PD, whenever you're gonna put your product out, just let us know and we'll make sure that we push it out because that's the whole PD. Because now when you talk about operations, and I love what you pointed out of the part of bottlenecking, of knowing how to move out of the way, because sometimes you think
Mhm.
it's about you. But here's the thing, I was thinking about it when you were talking. In the classroom, you develop leaders, little small leaders. And that's what you want. And it's the same thing with schools as well. You want to make sure you get.
Exactly. Especially if you think about it from a classroom teacher aspect, everybody loves Harry Wong.
Mhm.
And the biggest example that Harry Wong uses is that he created so many systems in his classroom. His classroom ran whether he was in there or not. The kids knew all the routines, all the procedures. So let's make a school that way. If we could scale that and make it so that a school is running that way, then let's do that. Because then, they were able to run the class without him being there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And you think about this too, right? In the real world, I think about going to a football game.
Hmm.
Everything is set up in such a way that the crowd flows in a certain way when they're entering the
Yep.
stadium. And if they're exiting, it's set up so that it is an easy flow and it's an experience. So I agree with you wholeheartedly there, how important operations are. But again, let me know when you're going to have that the professional development or master class. Just let me know. I'll make
Definitely
sure
will.
yeah. So, ooh, that's good. So as a leader, there are many facets to leadership. It's not what I think people think. They look at the glitz and glam and think that's it. It's a lot more to it. So how do you ensure that decision-making processes align with your belief that all students can learn and achieve?
Well, I mean, the first thing this always sounds cliche when people say this, but like we always keep students at the center of the conversation. And that's absolutely true. But I think that once again, and I think this is a part of one of our standard operating procedures that we have,
Mhm.
thanks to Robin Jackson, I've been in the Buildership University for the last, 2 years now. So I'm about to graduate. And one of the things that we learned about is when we talk about our vision and our mission and our core values, it actually creates like this triangle, and then you have a North Star. So essentially, that's what everybody's working toward. And so, what we actually have is we have a decision making tool. And so the first thing that you ask is, say, you have a teacher that wants to teach juggling. And it's like, okay, well, if we're going to teach juggling, how does it help us meet our vision? How
Ooh,
does it help us, achieve our mission? How does it help us stay true to who we are with our core values? And so you rate it on a scale of 1 through 10, like Keith Lee. And if it's below a 5, then it's not a priority, right? But
yeah,
if it's something that's between like an 8 and a 10, it's definitely something that we need to be doing. So then that way people are able to come to the table. Once again, they don't need me to do that.
yeah.
They, that's something that they can do. And then what they'll do is they'll say, okay, we came up with this idea. It was rated between an 8 and a 10, and we think that we should, implement this. And so a lot of times it's like, well, if it's something that's going to help us, achieve our vision, stay true to who we are, and keep us on track with our mission, absolutely, let's do it 1,000%. So then there's no question about it, and everybody's on the same page, and then we can all run with it. So like you said, running with that vision, and making certain that everybody's on the same page.
This is good. I just want to tell you that I've said it a bunch of times, and you shouldn't say repeat it, be repetitive. But I want you to know, um, when that rubric, or that metric, that because sometimes when decisions are made,
Hmm.
people don't understand that it's not just this wild thought that came up, or it's personal. It's not personal, and you actually have mapped out a way to have a if you talk about collaboration, number one, you have to be on the same page, but then to have some type of tool to help you go in that direction is powerful. That's
Hmm.
that, that's good, because again, going back running, you got to know where you're running to, because you can run in the wrong direction and get there and you're
Right.
like, oh man, I went, why did I go this way? And put the efforts, but you're intentional about your efforts. That's the difference. So well, that's good. Thank you for sharing that.
But that's all Robin Jackson. That was one of her things that she taught in, that was one of her components she taught in, Buildership University. But it's something that's been really helpful to us, to the point where we don't even have to use it anymore, unless people want to really speak their piece.
Hmm.
And they're saying, well, let's go back to the North Star. Let's do that. Let's go back. But usually it's like everybody has this understanding. We can kind of roll with it. But sometimes it's like, we get in these heated discussions about what it is you want to do moving forward. But it's got to the point where it's just so ingrained that we all know that this is, if we are going to do something or do something new, it has to align with this.
Right. No, that's good. So it's one thing to connect with someone on social media, and you again, social media, and you see your post, and to kind of peel back those layers of the person is awesome to find out about you, Principal Mo. So far, we're what, four questions in, and this is some good stuff. So I know I got to go back and edit all this stuff and whatever, but hey, it's all to the good. So this next question, I think, yeah. So in what ways have you just used artificial intelligence in your leadership practice? I want to chime in. I'm telling you. Let me tell you now. I wanted to chime in when you post stuff. I've been wanting to chime in, but I'm gonna listen today, because I love what you're doing. I love what you're talking about. I can see what you're talking about. So, how has it supported the growth and then the equity? And how would you advise others to start exploring it and not thinking it's the how can you help others to explore using AI?
I think I think well, not I think, I know. So artificial intelligence is not even the next big thing in education. It's been here. It's just
Mhm.
it hasn't been embraced.
Right.
I've actually been using AI since I found out about ChatGPT, and it was in beta testing. And
Right.
so I requested to be a part of beta. So that's how long I've been using it. So that was what, 2022?
Yep. Yep.
And so one of the things that I was doing basic things like, improving communication. And I say that's basic. That's advanced for some people, but it's basic for me at this point. Improving communication, and I found out it could write rubrics. So I was teaching teachers here and there, like, hey, put your criteria and make this rubric. And so then they're like, well, it doesn't look right. It's not formatted correctly. And then it was like, oh, well, you can ask it for this particular output for
Mhm.
it to format it as a table. And
Yep.
so, and then I showed one teacher, and every single day he would come back and be like, I did this with AI. I made a meal plan. I made a workout plan. I made
Yeah.
this. And
Yeah.
he was doing all kinds of stuff that didn't even have anything to do with the classroom, but it was just really fun to discover that with someone else. And I started small. I will say that AI is not something that's widely used in my building right now. And I think just because people are really apprehensive in using it. And
Yeah.
so the way I've been able to leverage it and to be able to show people that it's good, it's good for use is a time saver and a productivity tool.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you shape it in that way, people are like, huh, okay, well, I do have a lot of work to do. What you say about this AI again? So just some of the things that I've been able to use it for as a school leader is for data analysis, having another lens, triangulation of data, looking at multiple
Mhm.
data points and trying to uncover things that I may have missed.
Yeah.
Basic communication, also thought partnering. I don't think people really realize, even though it's not a being, it's intelligent. And so even looking at you could ask it, pretend you're Zaretta Hammond and look at, my professional development and, how does this address, the different parts of the brain and learning, or I had this idea. This is my idea. What are some obstacles or challenges that I'm not seeing that I may face that I may have to, address later down the line?
Absolutely.
So it's even good for that. Because this job is lonely. I mean, I do have an assistant principal, but still there are times where I'm just like, I have to get out of my own head and sometimes just get some thoughts out and see, what, instead of just throwing spaghetti on the wall and seeing what
Right.
sticks. But one example, I just did this actually with my one of my teams this past week in collaborative planning. I taught them how to unpack a standard using AI.
Mhm.
And so we unpacked the standard together. I engineered a prompt for them to use with the standard. And we unpacked the standard. But not only did we unpack it, I asked for the specific verbs that are in the standard.
Right.
Boom. So if you unpack the standard, you have the verbs. That means you have your verbs for your objectives. That means I should not see identify all week. Okay. All right, that's one thing out the way. Then the second part is, now tell me how to scaffold this standard so
Yes.
that all the students are able to meet it proficiently.
Mhm.
Then, as a follow up, because now we're preparing for testing, then what I would like for you to do is I would like for you to take this standard and then create 5 questions that mirror our state test. 5 different questions that match those task types.
Yes.
Spits it all out. And so I showed them that, and they were like, oh, I'm using this every day.
Right.
Then I also showed them, I said, look, you can create your lesson plan, and then you could put your lesson plan through, you could use Magic School AI or you could use Brisk, and
Yeah.
it'll create your slides for you.
Absolutely.
And then I said, look, you could get your planning done literally in one planning period with AI.
Yeah.
I was like, if you use it properly. And I was like, but I said, the only thing that you have to do and make certain that it's right for your kids, number one.
Yes.
Number two, you have to make sure that the content is accurate and it's reflective of, the curriculum and what we're teaching. I said, but at least you have a starting point and you're not starting from scratch. And I said,
Absolutely.
and that's the beautiful part of it about AI, is that it gives you that jumping point, with, instead of just coming up with stuff out of thin air. And I think that's one of the great things about teachers is that they're able to do that. They're very creative and they can come up with all these different great ideas and
Mhm.
execute them. But we're burning them out in the process because that's a lot to do. And and given that we have to teach all these different standards every single week, every single month, the reality is that they can't always generate all of that. Um,
No, you're right.
and then be able to turn around and teach it effectively.
Yeah, so ooh,
You want to go say, what's the PD again?
you're right. Because I don't think people realize
Yeah.
the capability. It's almost like when of course the pandemic hit. This is it's a terrible time in our world, but everybody went virtual,
Mhm.
and this whole model of SAMR. That was the first time I heard this term SAMR, which is just SAMR. So it's substitution,
Mhm. Mhm.
augmentation, modification, and
Yep.
redefinition. So with AI, just like you just said, you're basically you have a math coach or ELA coach or whatever coach, instructional coach there on this screen that can take this information and lay it out in such a way that
Mhm.
it helps you now to deliver instruction differently. And it
Yes.
lays it out in a way, and even telling the prompt, well, write it on the 5th grade level, write it on the 3rd grade
Mhm. Mhm. Great.
level.
Exactly. Leveling text. Yep. And so what I also said, I said, even one, we did one standard for one teacher. She's like, well, she's like, I'm doing all those things. I said, great. I said, so not this may be the flip side for you. This may be a checklist. I was like, you might just to make sure you don't miss anything. I said, this might be a checklist for you. And then what I also said, I said, you can make this a checklist for the students.
Right.
You can have them create a standards tracker for the students to say, oh, okay, I know how to, identify, the main idea of a story. I know how to compare two main ideas of two different stories. I know how to compare and contrast. So then, the kids can then take ownership of their learning,
Right. Yeah. Yes.
and then it took you all of 3 minutes to do all of that, to prepare it so
Right.
that you could turn around and teach it.
Right. Or even take a text and
Hmm.
have AI to create a text that models that. So if you're looking, instead of having those resources of saying, well,
Hmm.
I'm looking for another text that's on this particular reading level, you can put that text in there and allow
Hmm.
AI to rewrite one for you, and you can kind of go through it and kind of look through and make sure that it's grade appropriate. But yeah, whew,
Right. Or to create guided notes, and and create access for those students who may have trouble, like, taking notes, doing note take. I mean, you think about like equity and access, AI, it helps really level that playing field.
it, it does. I'll say this in the being able to do what I'm doing right now of talking
Hmm.
to educators across the nation and having those tools at my disposal to be able to navigate these parts. Um, if AI was not here, mm-mm, I wouldn't have you can have the knowledge, but you're limited, and you're able to use this artificial intelligence to help you navigate these waters because
Right.
it's different. So, um, yeah, whenever you this make the flyer, however you want to make the flyer, just however you gonna make it. Fiverr does flyers, or you get AI to do the flyer.
Hmm.
However you want to do it, just go ahead and get this one out because
I
what
have one
happens.
more.
Okay, go ahead.
I
Go
have
ahead.
one more. So, have you used Notebook LM yet?
I've heard of it. I
Notebook
haven't. Yeah,
LM.
yeah, I heard of it. Yeah.
What? So you could take lengthy text, like, for example, the teacher contract, right?
Mhm.
You could upload the teacher contract, and then what it'll do is it'll just, it'll keep it there. And so, say for example, you know, um, somebody has some sort of grievance, or they say that this is in the contract, or let's go to the contract language. Well, instead of doing control F and control find
Right, right,
and
yeah.
then trying to find the terms and then clicking through and finding the right section and article, All you have to do is go in Notebook LM and you can ask the question that the person's asking you, and it'll find the actual language that answers your question directly. And then you can then just copy and paste that language and send it to them or whatever. But what it also does is it turns lengthy text into a podcast. And so what it'll do is it'll regenerate it, and it'll have like two people talking about it.
Yeah.
So it's like it's incredible. I mean, you think about like, somebody who or like say you're in grad school, you don't have time to, do all this reading and be a, you're getting your PhD, and you could like literally take you research and turn it into a podcast and then listen to it while you're driving to work.
So listen, back when I got my stuff together, if they had that, oh my goodness. You got these, of course they're catching up in terms of
right.
In terms of making sure that, you have you do it the correct way. I'm on live stream, so let me stay in the right lane. So making sure that you turn in your own work. But
absolutely.
Right. But if this was way back when I got my stuff, life would have been a little different. But I wish I would have had the conversation before, because you know what I would do? I would share my screen and we will write some prompts. We will put some prompts in here. But we didn't talk before. But that's, I got my chat right here is on my left hand side. I got Chat GPT. It's right. Let me go ahead and show. Where is it? Let's get this window over here. Let me make sure I have the right stuff up first. Now, let me put up anything. Hold up. Let me change it. I'm going to bring.
You know what else you need to get?
What's that?
Claude, the recorder.
I got Claude. Yes. Yep.
No, not Claude. Claude is PLAUD.
Okay.
So it's an AI recorder. You get like 300 minutes a month. But what it does is, and I just saw it today, I'm going to make a video about it. Like my mind is completely blown. I got it from Amazon. And what it does is it records whatever you needed to record. It transcribes it. But then what it also did, oh my goodness, I wish I could. I don't know if I could on the Mac. I don't know. But
what's the name
what
of
it did?
Spell it again.
Claude, PLAUD.
UD.
Mm-hmm.
Did I spell it PALUD? Plod.
Yep, PLAUD.
Okay.
Yes. And so it gave me a transcription, but then it also gave me a summary. And what it did is it made an overview. It gave me title. It made an outline of my whole conversation that I had. And this was a conversation with me and two other people. Then and then it gave me next steps, and then also points of clarity, things that didn't have answers to them, or things that were left, without a conclusion. It gave me action items. It gave me, some points of clarity to ask questions. But then it also gave me a mind map. It gave me a map of everything that we talked about. When I tell you, like, you think about it, if you're sitting in meetings, and if the notes are already done for you, the action steps, things like that. I mean, those are roles that we assign people in meetings to do.
Right. Yes. I agree.
Like these are things that we assign people to do in meetings. And I know part of it is like, to keep people on task. But if we were actually focusing on the work and like engaging in the conversation,
hold on.
Like, so that's what I talk about with AI all the time, is that we're focused on the people, is that, putting the people over the paperwork, focusing on the people, focusing on what matters most, then, we can kind of get these like rudimentary archaic things out of the way.
So
I can talk to you about AI all day. I don't know if you have another hour.
So number one, where did you come from? Let's figure this out. I introduced you, but where did you come from? You're like, this is it because you're used to, sometimes with routines, you're used to, this is the way I used to do it, and being able to optimize it is not necessarily on your mind. Instead of giving somebody that responsibility, like I did today in my meeting today, Zoom, Firefly, whoever that person was over there, took down everything and gave me that feedback. Oh my goodness! I'm sorry for cutting you off. You just got me excited over here.
No, yeah, that's what it does. It gets you excited. So,
Yeah,
or like I say, it makes my heart happy.
yeah.
But yeah, I play with AI like pretty much all day. I just try new things. I think about, it wouldn't be cool if it could do this. I have I've even been researching on how to create my own GPTs and seeing how that works. Um, yeah,
Go
because
ahead.
like
I'm sorry. Go
I
ahead.
would really love, like, there's some things that are all like in my brain that I'm like, I really would, if this was a GPT, like it would be a lifesaver.
So we'll talk about that in just a moment offline. But yeah, you didn't got my
Mhm,
mind to going. This is at a point. I'm a former football coach, but I did teach in my class. I had algebra 1
mhm.
and 8th grade math, so I had a state test, so I had to teach. So my
Yep.
football background, we usually, you have your 2-minute warning, in
Mhm.
which you'll have the floor, and ooh, I wish we can continue on in the conversation, but I want to be, respectful of your time. So it's a 2-minute warning, and you have the floor. I'm going to step out of the way. Once you're done, of course, I'll take you off stage and close it out. And I just ask for 2 or 3 minutes of your time afterwards. All right, you have the floor.
Okay. Well, once again, Tony, thank you so much for having me on your podcast today. I really appreciate it. I appreciate, the connection that we've had and the conversation that we had today. I always like to do some little shout outs. So shout out to my staff because they do listen to when I do these podcasts. Shout out to them for kind of just like, running with some of my crazy ideas and, and seeing the vision and hanging in there with me. Shout out to my principals, my friends, and my colleagues that, I've been working with for a long time. Dr. Ryan Daniel, Brandon Pinkney, Alicia Manning, and a host of many, many others. Shout out to all of my educator friends who are on the internet with me, on Instagram, on Twitter. Well, not so much Twitter anymore, everybody left, but on TikTok as well. Shout out to y'all, and also shout out to my husband. I feel like spouses are the real unsung heroes of education for many reasons, and also to my boys. I have twin boys who are 9, and they really do keep me going. But yeah, that's my, I love what I do. I love education. This is the first and the last thing that this is the first and last career I've ever had. I've always worked with children. So anything that helps, like I said, us humans collaborating to make little humans better humans, that's what I'm about.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Gonna drop you in the backstage, but don't go anywhere. All right.
Okay.
All right. So when we think about just education, education is going to be here forever, but it's how are you educating your students? I give a shout out to Principal Mo. Now, when we talk about technology, I love it. And to hear, as I said earlier, you see information that's being put on the internet, put it on social media, but then to listen to the person to make those connections of, oh, that's that post. Oh, this is so it's great to hear that. Guys, thank you so much for viewing this particular podcast. Make sure you connect with Principal Mo. She's on Threads by Principal Mo. Instagram, just search it, connect with her because she is one that is very engaging with her content. And as you heard tonight, as you're listening, she has some great, powerful insight on how to be an effective leader and educator. So again, guys, thank you so much for joining. Subscribe to Transforming Lives podcast on YouTube. I appreciate it. Guys, it's time to go. I hate to go, but we got to go.